Clarity on Fire, a podcast for people who know what they don't want out of their life and career, but aren't sure what they'd rather be doing.
In a world where it's easy to exist, but hard to feel alive, we, Kristen
And Rachel,
2 certified life and career coaches, are here to help you cut through the information overload, get unstuck, and focus not just on how you can have a career you're passionate about, but how to create a whole life that feels fulfilling.
So join us here, where we serve up inspiration and down-to-earth wisdom in a way that only 2 best friends can.
We want you to experience the relief of knowing that, yes, you're allowed to want more out of your life and career.
And no, you don't have to wander through the dark anymore. Our job is to light the fire that shows you the way. Let's go.
Hey. This is actually our 100th episode.
That's crazy.
It is kind of crazy.
It feels like it went really fast.
Well, we've been doing... So next month, April 2019, is our year podcast anniversary. So we've hit 100 episodes before we've hit a year, which mathematically makes sense. But so next month, we're going to have like a special kind of celebration episode. So this is nothing special other than the fact that like it's going to be a good conversation, and every conversation we have is special. But I just wanted to say, woohoo, it's our 100th episode.
Yay! We should have like some confetti or something.
We're not good at celebrating.
No, we're terrible.
Like our friends tell us that we kind of suck at it. It's introvert problem. Like partying is just not my deal. Oh my God, do you know how we're going to celebrate our year podcast anniversary? Game of Thrones. It's coming back.
That's the most anxiety-producing celebration I could hope for.
I know, but it's the same week as our 1-year podcast anniversary. I think that
is a good celebration.
That's special. Gotta love me some generous people. Okay.
Well, for those of you listening on the podcast, this is a reminder. We're doing video versions of these side chats on YouTube. So if you want to watch us,
pause and go to
you
YouTube.
can go watch us on YouTube. Or if you're finding us on YouTube, we have a podcast.
Yeah.
Yay!
So you don't have to watch. I mean, you could, but if it's more convenient to listen on your podcast app, just any whatever your favorite podcast app
choices
is.
now.
You can go watch us on your favorite, listen to us on your favorite podcast app. Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, wherever, you'll find us. And if you want to watch us, here we are on YouTube. Okay, so this is a side chat. So once a month, we have a conversation just between the 2 of us where we don't have much planning, just kind of riffing on a subject. And we decided once a month we're going to actually record it. Have a nice... This is our faces.
This is one of our video ones.
Yeah, so... you want to say what this month's topic is?
Yes, this one is about our desire to fix people.
When you want to fix someone, but you can't.
Yeah, how there are people in your lives who I know you wish you could fix some aspect of them or some way that they're showing up in their life, or you're like, oh, it could be so much easier if you just did it this way, and you feel like you have the answers, and you really, really want to impart them on someone else, but... It's not working.
It's not working. What do we do?
Yes.
How can we get it to work? How can we maybe let go of our compulsion to need to fix them in the first place? How does it show up? We're going to start talking about that because I think that it doesn't show up the same for everyone, and you might not recognize that what you're doing is actually like falling into the category of trying to fix people. Some of you might know, no, I'm trying to fix that person. But some of you might not. You might not realize you're doing it. So we got to make sure that you realize you're doing it in the first place. And then we're going to give you some, alternatives for how to think about it that will give you, and I hope the other people in your life who you're trying to fix, some peace. Just like we're going to, we don't need to create that anxiety within ourselves or within other people. There is another way. Okay, so first...
How it shows up.
We're going to talk about how it shows up. Okay, so I'm just going to start by saying this. I would have told you that I am not the kind of person who I guess I see people who want to fix people as more like do-gooders. And like kind of like maybe bordering on that martyr territory of like, I just want to help you so much. Why won't you let me help you? That is not how I see myself. And so I actually have not struggled, but I've had to come to terms with the fact that, oh no, you do this a lot. You do this all the time.
Just in a totally different way.
You're just not doing it in that sort of what I think is a traditional way, but who knows what the hell I'm talking about. I mean, maybe just I want to distance myself from what I think other people are doing. So I'm like, oh no, I'm not doing that. No, but I am. No, I'm doing it like all the time.
Okay. So do you want to talk about
so
what it shows up like for you?
Yeah. So wanting to fix people for me shows up as anger and frustration and know-it-all behavior and righteousness. So I'll give you a couple examples. One that's kind of innocuous that I think a lot of people do is, I mean, and I used to do this like a decade ago. I don't do this anymore. But right out of college when I was really bored at my job, I was constantly reading articles like on, not really on Facebook, but on like advice websites and like, you know, female-friendly content hubs. And I would read stories from these girls who had literally no idea what they were doing with their lives. And they were making the worst, like, disastrous decisions. And they were writing it kind of like Sex and the City chic. Like, being a hot mess is cool. Which I think we've come away from that culturally. I don't think we're into, like, being a hot mess anymore. Which I'm like, we're about having your crap together now. Which is excellent. But at the time, there was a bit of, like, a hot mess chic going on, like, a decade ago. And so I was constantly commenting and being like, oh my God, you just need to do it like this. And I would literally get so angry at these people that I had never met online. I would send you articles and you'd be like, stop.
Or you'd rant to me on the phone. I'm like, who is this person?
I don't even know who this person is. I don't even know. You didn't know. I didn't know. But they were someone I followed online and I was just so angry all the time that they just weren't doing it right. And it was just like, if you could just see that I am right and that you are wrong, you could save yourself all of this heartache and all of this trouble. And so I would do it to strangers. And I would also do it to you.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just going to say that this is the area that Kristen and I Rachel, has struggled with the most.
In our, 10 or 11 years of
going on
best
12 years of knowing each other. This is the area where we have struggled the most in our relationship. So this is like a little bit of inside Rachel therapy session. We've never been to therapy together, by the way.
No, we haven't.
We're coaches, so we were able to kind of work it out ourselves, but it's taken a long time. So do you want to, I'm going to let you say, I don't feel like it's my story to tell, so I feel like I'm going to let you say why we have struggled in our relationship at times.
Well, this has probably shown up in a lot of areas, but there's one area where it showed up the most.
It was the worst. Yes.
Right. This is not the only area, but it's the most relevant.
Yeah.
Which has been my previous dating relationships and how historically I would
You had a pattern.
I had a pattern of dating men.
Being
boys.
attracted to men. Boys.
We were younger. Who just were not as invested as I am. Like, I am just a deep feeler, and I'm, like, in it, and I'm loyal, but that was not necessarily the kind of people that I was always attracting.
No.
And
very,
it was
like,
very
emotionally
imbalanced.
unattached, didn't want to give their equal share.
Right. And so you saw examples of me being in that imbalance, sometimes being disrespected or not standing up for myself enough. And I wasn't always willing to look at it. I kind of knew on some level, but I wasn't always willing to look at it hardcore. And you had a very hard time witnessing me have to go through this pattern.
Okay, I'm not...
Do you want to share your experience?
I am not joking that when I say that some of the hardest times of my life have been watching her struggle. Which I actually think is a testament to how much I care about you. Not to sound manipulative or to sound like an emotional abuser.
Oh no.
You know what like, I mean to you because I care. No, that's... I don't know how mean I was to you. I was just really blunt. Which can border on mean, obviously.
Right.
But yeah, I just, internally, it just filled me with complete and utter rage. Because to me, it felt so obvious. Like, this person isn't treating you well. You could do so much better. You are so much better than this person. And I don't mean better. No, I do. No, I'm not even going to try. Like, no, she was better than that. And I'm like, why can't you see that? And I think here's the thing, like, it's not like I haven't been in that position before. I mean, I'm sure my parents said that about some of the boys I dated when I was in college. But, you have a personality type that I didn't have that made you susceptible to that pattern where, like, right. You didn't speak up for yourself. You were more timid. You had more people-pleasing issues to overcome. And so it just, you attracted that type of person. And as someone who doesn't have that struggle, it was so hard to watch someone not stand up for themselves or not speak up when all you want to say is, no, I know how to do this. Just let me, just like, stop. I'll do it. Just like, I'll tell you what to say and what to do. And then you won't have to struggle anymore. Right. And you can have a relationship that actually makes you happy. It just was so infuriating.
Right. However, so I'll tell you my experience then, because I think it's helpful to be like, what is it like to be the person who someone is trying to fix?
Yeah. How does it show up on all sides of the equation?
Right.
Yeah.
So being in a situation where maybe I kind of knew this isn't quite right, but I wasn't at a point where I was willing to throw in the towel. Maybe on some level, it was probably people pleasing. On some level, it was probably some higher self.
We'll talk about that later.
I needed this experience, but for whatever reason, I wasn't ready to take certain actions or to end the relationship or whatever. No. And when I get feedback from someone saying, well, just do this, or just...
He's an idiot.
Right.
I remember you came up to me at one point and you were like, I had just met someone who I dated.
I said, what did you think?
And you said, what did you think? And I was like, I don't think he's like your person or anything. And you were so like devastated that I had told you the truth. And I was like, bitch, you asked me to tell you the truth. In hindsight, I could have said that better. And she may have been more receptive.
Well, right. And so my reaction to someone saying, I know what's best for you, or I know what you should do or what you should not do, was to get defensive, which I think makes sense.
Well, you dig in. I oh my God,
right. So I would start to defend myself and the other person and my decisions even more.
I have the perfect analogy that I just thought of that I didn't come up with, but it was in a conversation about politics and how hard it is to change someone's mind about who they voted for. And we all know where this is going, right? But it's like, if someone votes for someone who then turns out to be not who you thought they were, or who turns out to be a disaster, the reason that it's really hard for them to walk it back and say, oh no, I chose wrong, or oh no, I didn't think, I thought that person was someone that they weren't. It's like painting your house purple. You then have to double down on it and say, instead of saying to everyone in your neighborhood,
I made a mistake.
Oh, I made a mistake. This is a terrible, ugly purple house. Because you have pride, you have to double down and you have to be like, no, I love my purple house. Like, straight up, this is exactly what I wanted. This purple, no. Right. I love this eggplant color on my house, the whole house. So I feel like that's what defensiveness does when you try to call someone out or when you're trying to fix someone. Often it just sends them into, they have to double down on their behavior in order to save their ego or their pride. And that's a very normal human response.
Yeah, and that's absolutely what my response was. So instead of saying, wow, you know what, let me take another look at this.
Maybe this is not the right shade of house for me.
I would just say, because it felt to me like an attack. Because that's what so when someone is trying to fix you, there's this inherent unspoken thing that if you're trying to fix me, on some level you must think I'm broken or something's wrong. Because
to fix implies brokenness.
Exactly. And so if someone is implying you're broken, you're going to be like, who says who? You know, I'm not broken. I'm just fine.
Watch how not broken I am. I'm going to keep doing this.
I will say, now this is my reaction. I think there are some people who might have had the reaction, oh my gosh, you're right. I'm totally... So some people might have the reaction of just placating and just saying, clearly I don't know anything, and taking your word blindly.
Which we'll talk about a little bit later.
That's another type of a reaction, right? From someone wanting to fix you. But my reaction was defensiveness and digging my heels in and being like, you don't know me. I know what's best for me. And I would actually hold on tighter.
Yeah. So we'll talk in a little bit about what to do differently, how to approach it differently so that people might be more responsive to your help. Because it's not like, let's be honest, it's not like I was wrong for feeling the way I felt. Now she doesn't behave that way anymore. Like, she's worked past that pattern. But it's not like I was wrong. It was just that what I was saying and how I was saying it was totally unhelpful and not productive. So it's not like it's always wrong to speak up and to try to help someone. And it's not like, you don't have good intentions. It's just good intentions mean nothing if you can't say it in a way that actually might be receptive or more productive to someone.
And also recognize, I think there's a time to recognize, is this even my place? Am I actually making things worse by speaking up when I could be in a different role for this person? So we'll talk about that too.
Yeah.
There's different ways to respond to this, and sometimes it's almost your obligation to the person you care about to try to speak up, but in a helpful, constructive way.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's your
Not your
obligation
job.
to just be there for them and let them go through the struggle.
Yeah. So, not my circus, not my monkeys.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's walk through other ways that this shows up.
Yep.
So, okay. I have, and she's told me it was fine if I talked about this. I have a client who has a teenage daughter who's in high school and she's going to go to college in a couple years. And my client was really struggling with how to help my daughter be more responsible. She's worried. She's like, I'm genuinely worried that my daughter is going to get to college and that she might flunk out. And it's not because she's not smart and she has a ton of potential. It's just, I don't really see her using it now, and I'm afraid that she has support now, and she's not like coming into her own, and I'm afraid that when she goes to college, she's gonna not wake up for class on time, she's not gonna do her homework, and I'm really afraid of that. And I was like, okay, well, what are you doing as a parent that may or may not be contributing or not, basically depriving or enabling your kid from being responsible? And I think that was a good conversation, but it was hard at first because I think we don't always want to take responsibility for how we might be contributing to the problem. But very quickly she owned up to the fact that she's like, oh, well, I'm making sure she gets to school on time. I'm making sure she does her homework. I'm constantly like checking in on her and sometimes nagging her to do her homework. And I'm doing her laundry. And I'm not actually teaching her how to be responsible, because if I keep doing it for her, you know what?
There's no incentive for her to do it on her own.
She might never do it on her own. But what she said was, I'm just really afraid that if I don't remind her to do her homework, that she might fail a test. And I was like, yeah, exactly. She might need to fail a test, because telling someone to do their homework 25 times is not as powerful as failing a test once.
Right.
Right? And having to be like, holy crap, I messed up and now I have to get myself out of this, as opposed to my mom getting me out of it by constantly telling me what to do or reminding me.
Or sometimes, like you said, doing it for her. So if I don't trust that she's going to get herself somewhere on time, I make sure that I drive her, or I make sure that I wake her up, or I make sure that I...
Maybe you don't do that.
Right? And so I think enabling and doing things for someone is another way that we try to fix them.
Over-giving.
This is too hard for you, or you're getting it wrong, or you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
I'll just do it.
No, let me do it. It'll be easier if I do it.
Yep.
Ooh.
And this is so much harder, I imagine, as a parent.
Yeah.
Because you feel so connected, and because
their whole lives is your success, you know?
Their whole lives, you have been doing things for them.
Well,
so there's a point at which where you have to say, that's no longer serving them.
Yeah. You're going to be an adult in like 2 years.
That's hard.
You've got to actually learn how to be one now, so that when you're 18 in college, you're not a child masquerading as an adult. You're actually a young adult. And that's really difficult. Mm-hmm. But that's another way that it can show up, is overgiving. And enabling and doing it for people instead of allowing them to struggle and do it themselves.
Yeah, so look at both sides of that again. If you're trying to fix someone else, it can look like enabling or overgiving or doing things for them. Mm-hmm. If you're on the receiving end of that, if someone feels like they need to fix you, then it can look like complacency. It can look
smothering.
Right. You feel smothered. You feel like, what's the point in me even trying? This person's
just gonna do it anyway.
Right? It just seems easier. So you don't have that internal sense of responsibility if someone's trying to fix you and they're just doing it for you.
Or intrinsic motivation. It can kind of rob you of your desire to want to be better or do it yourself because someone else is just gonna swoop in and save you every time.
Yep. So you can see how the dynamics of what we're showing in these examples, not super helpful.
Neither side is great.
Everyone's getting frustrated.
I think this is the last example I have in mind. You can tell me if I'm wrong. The last way that I see this showing up is with people who are very empathetic, like highly sensitive people. And often it's very unconscious. They don't realize they're doing it. But if you're someone who identifies as an empath or a highly sensitive, you often feel other people's feelings as if they are your own, and you don't even often realize that it's happening. That it's just their discomfort is so palpable to you, or their pain is so palpable to you, that you, in order to save them and yourself from discomfort, you'll try to fix something for them, or you'll try to avoid it before it even happens. Like you're constantly, this is a people pleaser thing too, you'll kind of constantly be assessing and smoothing and like paving and like smoothing the path in front of people, kind of like curling, like Olympic, you know how they go in and to smooth the path so that there's just no impediments, so that you and them don't have to struggle. Like no confrontation, no scary feelings that you don't want to deal with, that you maybe feel uncomfortable with because maybe, you know, your emotions scare you, or anger scares you, or conflict scares you. So if you're an empath or a highly sensitive or a people pleaser, and often those things are very related, like there's a big Venn diagram where there's a lot of people who are all three of those things, or at least two of those things, you will see it as you are preempting it, or you're trying to smooth it over so that you won't have to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. I do think there's one more type of this showing up, which I guess for lack of a better term would be someone who in an attempt to try to make sure everyone's doing everything right, they become control freaks.
Oh, yeah.
And so this could be like a tyrannical boss, or this could be a parent who is so overbearing.
A real hard ass.
And they'll judge you for doing things wrong. They'll be like, what are you doing? That's so dumb. Do it this way. And they'll be that controlling, almost drill sergeant-esque approach to things, that it's like my way or the highway.
Yeah.
Because they think they know what's best for everyone all the time. And so you better fall into line. Yeah. And so I have a client right now who has a boss very much like that. It comes out of stress. So when her boss gets stressed, then the reaction is to make sure everyone else feels dumb and falls into line. But it creates a lot of panic in everyone. And you feel like you're walking on eggshells trying to do everything right, because she thinks she's got to fix all of her dumb employees who aren't doing things correctly because they're not doing things her way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's another very unproductive form of fixing everyone around you.
Okay, so can we jump right into talking about better ways to respond? Or we can do that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm like we've exhausted, I think.
We know it's not working.
What's not working and where it's coming from and how it shows up. So with that example, I feel like what's coming to mind for me is one of the first things you've got to do is you have to take responsibility for how you're interpreting something. Because in that example, the boss has an interpretation that her way is correct and everyone else's way is wrong. And therefore, she feels the need to fix everybody.
Yep.
But the only reason she feels that need is because that's her interpretation. So I think a huge part of getting peace from the need and the compulsion to fix people is acknowledging how correct or incorrect your interpretation might be of what's happening. And she's totally off base, because there are probably 8 million ways to get the job done, and she just thinks that her way is the only way. And so acknowledging there is more than one way to get this done I don't think it would. She sounds like the type who would need a lot more therapy or coaching to get over her issues.
Yeah, I think so.
But sometimes just acknowledging, you know what? There's more than one way to get to my destination. There's more than one right way for this to turn out. And so I don't need to control. I don't need to latch on, because there's infinite possibilities. There's not just one possibility.
Right. So probably most people listening are not so far on that spectrum, they probably wouldn't even be interested in personal growth in this way.
Yeah.
But you might find yourself being a little bit controlling sometimes out of discomfort or out of anxiety.
I think that's what I was doing.
And exactly. Exactly.
I was being a know-it-all kind of control freak about, like, this is how you need to be living your life, and if you're not doing it, what's wrong with you? Like, I was doing that.
So if you see yourself in some of that, you can ask, how convinced am I that this is the only way that this can go?
Yeah,
with a positive outcome?
what is another possible way that this could work out that isn't wouldn't be my choice, but that could be a possibility? Just acknowledge and try to name other potential outcomes or possibilities. That's just huge. Okay. Let's give some other examples of how to show up differently. You have a really hard but good one from one of your clients.
Yeah, this one is a little triggering, but I think this is I trusted my intuition on this one, and that's what I would encourage you to do as well. So I had a client who was in a relationship that was definitely emotionally and verbally abusive. And I had a fear that it was just a step or two removed from physically abusive.
Like had the potential to become
physical. It wasn't there yet, but it felt like it was on the verge. It could go there easily.
Right.
And
which is really scary to be working with someone and and
to have that fear.
Right, that's a legit high stakes.
Yes.
Situation.
Yeah. This is no joke. And of course, everyone in this woman's life was telling her, you got to leave this guy. This guy's bad news. You got to get out of there as soon as possible.
Right. No one thought this was a good idea.
And she was hearing that everywhere she turned. And she had the same reaction I described earlier, where she ended up being more defensive of her choice to stay with him, more defensive of him. So when someone said, you need to leave him, she would immediately say, yeah, but he can be so sweet and so she would find all these counterpoints because she felt like she was being attacked and her decision making was being attacked, and she went on the defensive. Mm-hmm. And I have to say, I really wanted to say the same thing. I really wanted to tell her, you got to get out of there.
They were right.
They were right.
Everyone was telling her what to do, trying to fix her. They were right.
They were right. And I had the same impulse, but she had told me, here's what everyone's telling me, but here's why I don't know if I agree. And so I had to take a deep breath. And also as a coach, it's not my job to tell someone this is what you need to do in your life. That's not my role. And I had to recognize what my role was in her life. And so instead I asked her, okay, describe the kind of relationship that you really want, that's going to end in long-term relationship fulfillment, that you want to be married to this person, you want to have a family with this person. Describe that relationship for me. And then I asked her, how can we get this current relationship that you have now to that relationship? So you know what you want and you know what's going to serve you in the long term. So if you've decided you're going to be with this guy, how are we going to get there?
This is going to trigger the hell out of some people listening to this. But let me just be real clear. Kristen was not advocating that she actually stay with someone who was abusive. What she was doing was she was calling this girl's bluff.
Yes. I knew it was impossible.
Yeah.
Because what she described was the complete opposite of what she was experiencing. Yeah. And there was no way to get there because he was not on board with changing.
But I knew this. She needed someone to step back and let her find out for herself that wasn't going to happen. And 3 weeks later, she broke up with him.
Yeah, not even.
Right? It was it was almost instantaneous. But that is how quickly she changed when someone stopped trying to change her.
I didn't try to change her. I knew she needs to prove to herself because everyone is trying to tell her what's right. She needs to see for herself, this cannot become what I want it to be. But first, in order to be able to see that, you have to ask yourself, what would it take? And if you ask yourself, what would it take? And you realize it can't happen. Well, now it's your decision. Yeah. So now she was able to say, oh, I don't want to be in this anymore. But that was her choice. It wasn't anyone else choosing for her.
Yeah. So
that was very hard, I have to say. Very hard for me because I wanted to tell her to run for the hills. But I also understand enough about how this fixing people thing works to recognize you can't talk someone into something that they're not bought into. Even if it's the right thing, even if it's the safe thing.
So I just want to really emphasize that what happens when someone feels like they're being attacked or they're being fixed is that, again, they get dug in. And what they have to do is they have to, in their mind, they have to defend themselves because what they're defending is their identity. What you're saying when you're trying to fix someone is you're broken and you're wrong. And what that does is it makes someone have to say, what they're hearing is, you're not good enough. You're not a good person. You don't have good judgment. And so in order for them to feel like, no, I do have good judgment, I am a good person, I am right, is they have to dig in on the thing that they believe. So it makes them have to retreat further into it. Whereas if you kind of step back, and what she did was she just gave her the choice. She said, okay, I trust you. Let's see how you can make this work. What she didn't do is make her feel like she was being labeled. Like, you're wrong, you have bad judgment. So it didn't have to be taken to the level of her identity. Like, she didn't have to feel like there's something inherently broken about who I am. She's just like, okay, you have a choice. Let's exercise that. And then because she didn't feel like you were making her feel like she was wrong or broken, she was free to make a different choice.
Well, now it was an empowered choice, too.
Yes.
Because now I've examined who I am and what I want. I recognize this is not it. Now I get to choose not to continue with this. And I get to choose what's right for me. So it's a tricky one. Look, if someone is being if someone's in a very unsafe situation,
I mean, right. Like,
this is a different story, but
yes,
I had to trust my gut on that one. But that might be true for some people in your life. You might have to say, I don't necessarily agree with what you're doing, but if you're committed to it, how can I support you in getting what you want out of it?
So, okay. Just a couple of other quick examples of better ways to respond. Okay. I'm thinking about the fact that we don't do this very much, but at the beginning of coaching, we didn't know as much about what we were doing. And a common occurrence was that people would try to buy coaching for someone else, a friend or a family member or whatever. And almost without a doubt, there would be a very clear pattern. The person wouldn't show up. They wouldn't even schedule the appointment, or they would, and then they wouldn't show up, or they wouldn't show up after one session. Like, there was literally no buy-in. And so I see this happen.
You mean literal, because they didn't pay for it.
Literally, they didn't pay for it. So that is so critical, that one of the things that we think we're doing when we're fixing people is like, I'm going to make it easy for them. I'm going to, have a coaching session. We've had people buy our courses for other people, and we can see who logs in and who doesn't. No one ever logged in. So we don't let it happen anymore. So
we've given our program to friends
who were saying, I have all of these problems.
And we're like, this is what we do.
I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I don't know what I'm not happy in my job. I just feel like I feel so stuck. And we're like, that's what we do. Would you like to be in our course for free? And that friend never logged in. Not once. And it's like, I literally was offering on a silver platter exactly what they needed and nada. So this is really important. People need to be bought in themselves. You can't fake or manufacture real buy-in. You cannot buy into something for another person.
Which is why when you just tell someone to do something, they're not inherently bought in. They will either dig their heels in, or they might do it, but they're always going to be wondering, did I just do that because someone told me to, or because I wanted to do that, because that was the right decision for me? So there's not that deep buy-in, and they're always going to have a little bit of doubt. So one way that, and this is only for people who you can tell are already open to feedback. There are some people who are not open to it. In which case, if they are not at all open to your feedback or your advice, then you're wasting your breath, and you're probably just going to cause a wedge between the two of you, frankly.
Yeah, or you're going to push them further into their behavior.
Yes. But if you have someone in your life who does feel like they might be open, it's really helpful. This is going to sound so small and kind of silly, but it makes a big difference. If you ask, hey, would you be open to me sharing my thoughts about this? Or how would you feel about me giving you some feedback? And ask for their buy-in. And if they say, sure, I'd be open to hearing that. Okay, now they are bought into having a conversation about a solution. If you just impart that on them, then they're going to always be wondering, well, clearly they think something's wrong with me, or what do they know? There's this defensive reaction that is normal for people.
So in the buying people a course situation, buying it for them and saying, here, I got this for you for Christmas. You've been complaining about your job situation. I know these coaches. They're great. I worked with one of them. Not the right move because they're not bought in. They didn't say that that's what they wanted. They weren't willing to spend their time and their money on it. That's the thing. They're not willing to spend their resources on it. They're not going to have what it takes to then do the hard work that comes next. With personal development isn't easy. And so you have to be bought in so that you're actually willing to do the messy, nitty-gritty work that comes with trying to be a better person and figuring out what you want to do with your life. So the more appropriate response, if you want to help someone who's struggling in that way, is here's a blog post, here's a podcast episode. Well, give it a listen if you want. I like these people. You can share, but you don't do it for them. And if they don't want to listen, if they don't want to have anything to do with it, if they're not ready, they might take another year or 2 or 5 to get to the point where you want them to be today. And that's okay.
Absolutely. And I will say most of the time, the vast majority of the time that someone comes to me and says, I know someone who could benefit from your coaching, nothing happens.
Nothing ever happens.
Nothing happens. I've had a couple of instances in which usually it's a parent saying, my kid is looking for some kind of a support in their career and finding their passion. Could they talk to you? Now, if I can get that person on the phone and we can have a very candid conversation and I can say, this is what it's about. Are you bought in? Because if you're not bought in, we're not doing this thing. Then if I can tell that person, maybe it wasn't their idea originally, but it becomes their idea as they talk to me and as they say, yeah, I'm willing to do this work. Yeah, I'm willing to give this time each week. I have had a couple of instances where it goes really well. But
usually
I would never let a parent just pay for coaching and have their child just start working with me.
Well, and often, especially if the kid is over 18, you'll say, sure, I'll talk to your kid if they reach out to me.
Yes.
If they email me themselves and say, yes, I want to talk to you.
Yep.
But if you're doing all the work, nope, I don't want to touch that. Because clearly if they're not even bought in enough to email me, then they don't have what it takes to actually change. And that is what it is.
Okay. So it's okay if it starts out being someone else's idea, but you have to get bought in or let it go.
Yeah. And okay, so again, asking first before you're sharing something. Like,
ask for permission.
Would it be okay, or how willing are you to hear some maybe difficult feedback I have for you? And if they're like, want to hear your opinion, or if you can tell they're just like, then
it's not the right time.
You might temper your response, or you might say nothing, and that's okay. So here's what this all boils down to. We're really getting to like the meat of the matter now. The meat of the matter. Well, I mean, it's true, but it's just kind of gross. So much of the compulsion to fix people, needing to be right, needing to control the outcome, has to do with the belief that struggle is bad. That's it.
And I feel uncomfortable
with struggle.
Watching you struggle. Or most of the time, if you're fixing someone, it's because something that they're doing is making you feel uncomfortable. Yeah. And you don't want them to go through that struggle, and you don't want to go through that struggle.
You don't have to watch them go through that struggle, because that creates struggle for you.
Exactly. So an avoidance of discomfort and avoidance of struggle.
And the labeling of struggle as a bad thing that should always be avoided. Here is the truth. There is nothing that teaches you more or that builds your character more than pain and struggle. The only way to become a resilient person is to have had painful experiences and failures that you then had to respond to and recover from. It's how we learn to walk as babies. Your parents might have to pick you up and dust you off, but you're probably going to keep falling over and over and over again until you actually learn to stand on your own and to walk. Somehow we can do that with babies. We understand that babies need to fail, and they need to sort of like fail upward in order to get where they're going, literally and metaphysically as well. But at some point, we stop assuming that that's the right way to behave. And honestly, it's wrong. We should always be treating people like we treat babies who are learning how to walk. That your stumbling, your failures are good experiences that teach you a lot about what works and what doesn't work, about what you want and what you don't want. And me trying to save you from that struggle is often stealing your learning opportunity from you and actually setting you back further.
In fact, I apologize if you've heard this example before, because this is not the first, the first one to use this example.
If the shoe fits, wear it.
It might be a cliche, but it is so relevant right now that I'm going to say it again. If you have heard this, the example of a caterpillar, right? So a caterpillar becomes a butterfly. We all know how that works.
Blah, blah, blah.
The step in between is they have to get into this chrysalis, and that's where they transform into becoming a butterfly.
But it's tight and it's painful.
And it's a really thick material that they have to break through, and it is a struggle. If you have ever watched a caterpillar, we did this in maybe my 5th grade class or something. We
try to get out of the cocoon.
Yeah, we raised caterpillars, and they hatched into butterflies. And if you watch them trying to get out of their cocoon, it is hard. They are struggling. They have to take breaks. I mean,
yeah.
It is a feat, a monumental feat for them to bust out of this thing. And there have been examples of people trying to help, right? So they'll cut a little slit in it, or they'll somehow break it open for them. And those butterflies who did not have to get out of it themselves will inevitably die. Because the struggle is what helps them build enough strength to then be able to fly as butterflies. Because that takes a lot of strength too. Mm-hmm. And if you try to help them, you will end up killing them. Because they did not build the muscles and the resilience in order to be able to take care of themselves on the other side of that. That's an extreme example, but that's what happens when you steal other people's struggle for them by fixing it for them, or by telling them how to fix it and not letting them learn on their own.
You're not giving them the opportunity to become the best version of themselves. Exactly. Often. They don't become strong or resilient people on the other side. Or mature. This is exactly what my client, who's a mom of a teenager, decided that adulthood is hard. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Being an adult is hard. And me doing everything for her is selling her a false sense of reality. That it's going to be easy to be an adult. And it's not. And so she needs to learn now that not only is adulthood not easy, but that she can handle the fact that adulthood sucks sometimes. She needs to learn how to recover from her failures so that when she gets to college and beyond, she's not like a complete ball of mess, because she's like, well, you know what? I failed that test that one time and I had to figure it out, and I'm a better person for that. And I know that I failed and then gotten back up before, and I know I can do it again. And plus, I know how to do my laundry and cook for myself. And I know that, no one's going to wake me up to go to school, and I got to do it myself, because, guess what? When I'm 25, my mommy's not going to be waking me up, and God forbid, no one's going to want to date me if my mom's still calling to wake me up at 25, right? So, seeing struggle and challenge as a growth opportunity for the person you're trying to help, and something that they might need to be going through. That's really critical right there. Need to be going through. Not that they might have to just tolerate, but that to see it as even a spiritual lesson. And I don't care what you believe in. I don't care if you believe in God, the universe, life itself. Who cares? I think that if you can see that people come into life with a certain curriculum, everyone has a different curriculum that they're working through in their life, and not everyone's is the same. Everyone's is completely different and unique to them. And we share certain curriculums and assignments with people, but at the end of the day, their curriculum is their curriculum. And that means that they might need to be going through what they're going through right now in order to become the person that they wanted to be. And it's not your job to decide that their journey is right or wrong.
Yeah,
you are not God, is what I'm saying.
Yes, this leads me into how arrogant is it, if we really think about it, to say, you shouldn't be going through this struggle. I know what would be better for you, and you should do it this way. You're not God, right?
Who made you omnipotent?
If you could zoom out of life and be able to see how the whole big picture of things play out over time, I guarantee you there are so many struggles that you would say that person has got to go through that struggle in order to be able to get where they want to go on the other side. I know, even if you look back in your own life, there are so many struggles that you can look at and say, thank goodness that happened. It sucked while I was in it, and I wish I didn't have to go through that. But I recognize now why I did have to go through that, because it helped me grow in this way. It helped me develop in this way. It helped me introduce me to these people who have been so important in my life. And because of that, it needed to happen.
I got a good example for you. When I was a teenager, I turned 18 the day before I went to college. I was very young. Some people were a year older. You know, they'd had a whole extra year at home. And as an introverted homebody, I could have used an extra year at home. And I went to college, and I've never been like, I'm not super social. So making friends was not easy for me, even though the girls I lived with in my suite were really nice. But I was 18 and I had a boyfriend for the first time, and I'd only been dating him for a few months. And he and my two of my best friends were at another school, like 2 hours away. And it just broke my heart that I couldn't be with those people that I wanted to be with. And that I was so unhappy at my new place. And so I said, I'm transferring. And my mom was just devastated. She was so pissed at me. Rightfully so, because I was choosing to leave what is inarguably a much better school that was harder to get into, for a school that is fine, but it was kind of like a party school. And I'm not a partier. And my mom was like so upset, because it's like you're throwing away this great educational opportunity for a stupid reason. And she was dead right. It was the wrong reason to transfer. But then I transferred. And that's where I met Kristen. Twist! So was that the wrong decision?
Right.
I don't know.
Would backfire exist if you hadn't transferred schools? I don't know.
So what I'm saying is that in the moment, it did look like a stupid decision. But in the long run, I did learn my lesson, and I actually got where I was supposed to go. And so that was part of my curriculum. And I think that had I do it, I think my mom would agree that in the end, it all worked out. And maybe she didn't need to be so worried that I was going to mess up my whole life, because there is a grander scheme to how things are working out a lot of the time.
Yeah. And to bring it full circle, I'll say, from our example at the beginning, I truly believe I had to go through some really unbalanced relationships to be able to say,
to learn how to do it right.
I don't want to do that anymore. This is what I want now. Right. This is what I deserve now. And that contrast was my learning ground.
Yeah, it was like your master's degree in how to have a healthy relationship.
Exactly. And I had to go through that, even though it sucked for me, it sucked for you, everyone involved along the way. But the struggle is worth it. And there was probably a couple areas of your life where things are just more challenging for you. It could be your health, it could be money, it could be relationships, it could be any number of things that just feel like, man, this is so hard for me. And there's a reason why certain areas are more of a struggle for each of us. I truly believe it's because there's so many better things on the other side.
Yeah.
In order to get a really great outcome, sometimes you have to struggle and have some contrast so you can really appreciate the goodness on the other side. And so the struggle can be totally worth it if you're the one who maybe other people feel like they're trying to fix, or if you're trying to fix someone else, you might be robbing them of the exact struggle that they need to have a really fantastic experience on the other side of that struggle.
They're never going to get the chance to become who they're supposed to be if you keep doing it for them. Yep. So here's a couple of questions that you can ask yourself. I think we need some filter questions. Just like as we're wrapping up, a few filter questions to ask ourselves to make sure we're not veering into this territory, and so that we're doing it right. So, okay, one is, am I enabling this person's short-term satisfaction or their long-term satisfaction? Perfect example, with the mom doing it all for the kid and the kid's not learning anything. You might be enabling both your and their short-term satisfaction, because who can deny that it's easier to make sure your kid gets on the bus that morning than you have to be late to work because you had to drive them or something like that. Or or like they just don't go to school that day and they fail a test because you already left for work and they didn't get up for school. Well, sure, short term, it's easier to just make sure they get to school. Long term, you're not teaching them a damn thing about what the real world is like and how failure can actually be a really good character building experience. So what am I doing in this scenario? Am I trying to advocate for their long-term development, or am I trying to address some sort of short-term pain or problem? we always need to go for the long term. Like the long-term development is where it's at. And this is where you draw boundaries with people. This is where you let them fail, you let them struggle, because in the short term, that's them being in the chrysalis. That long term enables them to thrive as the butterfly. I apologize. I can't even say it without sounding stupid.
I know.
But that's that. So
it's a good analogy.
That's just one really important point to make.
Yes. Another one is, am I doing this truly because I think that this is ultimately best for this person, or am I doing this because I feel so uncomfortable in this moment?
Right.
Who is this really for?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we're doing it just to overcome our own discomfort.
Yes. And then I think one of the last things that I'll just say, I don't know how to phrase it into a question, but it's not wrong for you to want to help people. It's not wrong for you to offer your support. But there's a difference between holding out a hand and then doing something for somebody else, or trying to like meddle in their affairs. So if someone's struggling, it's okay for you to say, hey, you could join me at this yoga class tonight. I think that you might really like it. Or it has like a great teacher who might have some good insights for you. Not like shame them into going with you, or not like force them or pay for that. Hey, I paid for you to go do this thing. You can offer, and you can offer more than once if you need to. You can be a hand that someone knows that they can reach out to when the time is right. Like when the time is right, they know that they can rely on you, because you've never made them feel like, if I admit that what I was doing was wrong, I can't go to that person because they'll shame me and they'll say I was right, right? Like you can support someone and offer your hand to them without making them feel like it's difficult to take it one day. Mm-hmm. So that's a delicate line to walk. But you can offer support without doing it for somebody. And at some point you do kind of have to just stop and say, okay, I've done it enough. Like I've offered 10 times. They know the offer is there. And so I don't have to keep saying it, because at some point I've made it clear.
Yeah.
And I can walk away.
You can also ask yourself, I guess you can look at the potential consequences. So if you want to fix a behavior, you want to change a behavior that is actually destructive. So if they're going to do this thing, a really bad outcome.
I mean, we all have addicts in our family. I mean, most of us at some point, I do, like I've seen it. And it's really rough.
Yes. So in that case, I think it's your obligation to step in and say, I don't want to see you hurt yourself. And so let me see what I can do here. Now, there's other instances where, like you said, the consequence of that mom not driving their kid to school.
Yeah, I think you have to weigh the consequences, is what you're saying.
Right. If the consequence is small, then it might be a good lesson for them to learn on their own instead of you talking them out of it.
But honestly, even that, like, I've come in contact and I've heard enough stories of addiction, which is the worst type of, needing to help someone, like, because their life depends on it, where
they're still not bought in.
They're not bought in.
Yeah.
And they're not going to do it.
Right. But it's one of those, like, you can take the car keys if someone
is drunk. Yes. Right.
You can do things to prevent certain behaviors that are
But even then, you can't fix it.
But you can't fix the underlying problem.
No. So, okay, we have talked ad nauseum about this. We want to hear what you guys think, so please share a comment, like leave us a comment.
Yeah, let us know if you've had either experience. So if
I'm sure you have.
There are people in your life who you're like, oh, I really want to fix this part of them. Or if you have felt like other people in your life have tried to fix you, and what did that feel like? We'd love to hear both sides of this. Probably not.
And if this is something, so let's say that people, there's something about yourself you do want to work on, and people telling you it's a problem isn't actually helping you. That's what coaching is for. So what Kristen did for that client is what we do all the time. Like creating space that's judgment-free, that makes you feel like it's okay for me to mess up and no one's going to shame me for it.
For you to feel empowered to make your own decisions again, instead of not knowing what's your decision, what's someone else's decision.
Helping you get clear on what that even means in the first place. Like, what would it even mean to make my decision? Because I don't even know who I am or what I want. That's what we do in coaching. That's what we get clear on. So if that sounds good to you, if that's something that is overdue for you to be focusing on and working on, then I will leave a link in the episode description for you to reach out to us, and we can have a little bit of a phone conversation about it, which doesn't mean you're signing up for coaching. It just means I'm serious enough that I want to talk to you about the possibility. So I'll leave a link in the episode description for that. And we will see you on Tuesday with a blog.
Blog.
I don't even know who it's. I don't know. Just go find it there on Tuesday. We'll be back on YouTube and podcast everywhere on Tuesday.
All right. See you then.
Bye.
Bye.